Good Monday morning, everybody. How are we doing? Hope you
Just
guys
fine.
all.
How are you today,
All right,
Steve?
Linda. I love when you match the energy. I love it. I love it. I love it. Who's got something to share from their weekend? Who had a good weekend? Let's get some good vibes going. Anybody put together a deal? Get something personally going good in your life? Maybe get back on your gym routine. What do we got? Linda, go ahead.
Well, I am an over the moon mama because my beautiful 28-year-old daughter drove down from Illinois to come and stay with me for a month, and I am just on cloud nine. It is the best treat in the whole world when your adult children come and spend time with you because time becomes such a precious commodity. And so I'm feeling insanely blessed, and I can't wipe the smile off my face.
I love it. How far is that drive?
Um, I think it's about 12 hours. So you do it in 2 days.
Okay.
So yeah, right. So you start early in the morning and then you stop in Tennessee and do an overnighter in Tennessee and then you come on down.
Love
It's
it.
not a yeah, it's really not a terrible drive. It just is long.
Awesome. 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 Anybody crushing their March Madness bracket and sitting pretty going into the final weekend? Who's got a March Madness bracket that you're just feeling really, really strong about? You got no basketball peeps on the call. All right. Well, we've got a special guest with us today where I'm really, really excited for you guys to hear from. Eric Beauregard is joining us this morning. Eric is a public adjuster, and I'm excited for you guys. I don't think a lot of people understand the role of a public adjuster and maybe the opportunities that you have to recommend public adjuster to your clients. As you're going through, just talking to your SOI about what's going on in their world, or specifically if you've got a real estate transaction going on. So I love the work that Eric does, and I'm grateful to have you on the show, man. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why don't you give everybody maybe just a little bit of background on yourself, how you got into the role, and then let's give an overview of what a public adjuster does, and maybe some specific examples.
Yeah, certainly didn't have anything prepared for this, but um, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. Was working construction prior and went down to Florida in 2004 for the hurricanes that hit. Started writing estimates for other public adjusters down there, building estimates that they would use, and then I got licensed and ended up meeting my wife, Christina, down there in Florida, and ended up staying down there for about 8 years. Doing tornado. Well, I guess some tornado, mostly hurricane work. Um, and then I ended up flying back and forth to Fort Lauderdale for Hurricane Ike in Texas, from Fort Lauderdale to Texas, for 2 years. And then when the tornadoes hit up here, we made a move back up here about 12, 13 years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. So, just a kind of a general overview. What does a public adjuster do? Kind of the day to day. What is the overall role? And then maybe let's get into some specifics.
Yeah. So overall, what a public adjuster does is a public adjuster helps represent the building owner, or the homeowner with their insurance claim. So let's say you had a kitchen fire. Not too bad of a kitchen fire, but maybe damaged a couple upper cabinets. You're dealing with the insurance company. They're saying, hey, we just want to replace the upper cabinets. We're not going to replace the lower cabinets. Now you're in a bind. Now you have an issue with your claim. So a lot of people will reach out to attorneys. Not a lot of people realize there are people like myself that can be privately hired. I am licensed by the state to do so, to fight insurance claims. So in that fire scenario, I would come in, I would document everything, I would put together a building estimate just like the insurance company does. Obviously, mine's going to include more. I'm going to include upper cabinets, lower cabinets, countertops, backsplashes, all the things that are included with that type of a job. And then we go back and forth and we negotiate for a fair settlement to get the homeowner back to where they were prior to the loss.
And so, do you have to get involved right up front before their insurance company's involved? Can you come in late in the game? How does that part work?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. Um, Sometimes we get involved right from day one. We prefer it that way. This way, we're in from day one. We're setting the pace of the claim. So we're meeting with the adjuster from day one. He knows our expectations. We know his. Because what we don't want is we don't want the insurance company to go back. That adjuster is going to show up that first time, and he's going to go back and report back to the carrier and give them a reserve on what he thinks the loss should be. Let's say he thinks it's $20,000 loss. Now, if a homeowner hires me after the fact, now I'm coming in, now I'm having to change their minds. They've already set this reserve at 20,000, but maybe I think it's 75,000. So now you're fighting those limitations that have already been put in the system. Now the supervisor is seeing that you're pushing this adjuster high. It does make it harder to come in after the fact. But we certainly do it all the time because a lot of people don't realize they have an issue until they're in that issue. They don't know up front that they're going to have an issue with getting cabinets paid until they get that building estimate and they realize it's not in there.
How about some scenarios maybe where it wouldn't make sense for a public adjuster? Like, are there times where you guys go out and you're like, hey, you know what? Just deal with
Mhm.
your insurance company directly on this one.
Yeah, I do a lot of that stuff. So I'll do a lot of people just call us and they're just looking for help. But it's not necessarily a big claim. It's not necessarily worth them hiring me, but they still need help. So I will still go out to a house. Me and my guys will still go out to a property, walk through a building estimate, walk through their scenario, give them some pointers, tell them what we would do, and then tell them to call the adjuster and see if it works. And if it doesn't, they can call us back. Kind of play it through. But there's no strings attached. They're not hiring us. So on a lot of the smaller stuff, again, just people need help sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily equate to them paying me for anything, and that's fine with us. Because we are referral based too. So, the more people that are out there that know who we are and that there are people like us that can help, the better it is for us too.
Yeah, I think it's similar to purchasing a house. It's not that often that somebody goes through an insurance claim, right? So you don't know what to expect. You
Yeah.
don't understand the process. So just having somebody that's on your side to kind of guide you and walk you through it, I think is really important.
Yeah, and a lot of people they'll talk to their friends, and they'll say, "Well, my friend had to claim this, and my friend had to claim that, and maybe that claim went great, and they did not need somebody like me because not every claim needs a public adjuster. There are a lot of great insurance companies and great adjusters, so you just have to make sure you get that combination of both, the good adjuster and the good company. But again, not every claim needs a public adjuster, but we're always willing to go out and look at a scenario and see if there's just something else that people aren't picking up on, just anything they need help with.
So I know for me, so I was on the other side, right? I wasn't a public
Mhm.
adjuster, but I would deal with people like you when I was working for the insurance company. So just to set a little bit of a background, insurance companies have what are called inside adjusters, right? And then they have kind of outside adjusters. So an inside adjuster is somebody that is an employee of the insurance company. So pick XYZ insurance company. They have a couple adjusters on staff. Those adjusters handle the claims that are coming in. If you get like a little bit of a storm, you get something going on where you've just got a higher volume of claims coming in, they'll go to their third party sources. So I worked for a company that represented the insurance companies, and we would get called in when their work was a little bit too much for them.
Mhm.
Right. And so we're going about our business. We go out, we look at it, we deal with the insured. And to be honest with you, I mean, the insurance companies that I worked for, they were not instructing us to be like, hey, get this done as cheap as possible. Matter of fact, I got paid more based on the size of the claim. Right. So for
Yep.
me, I had little, I don't know, like dollar, I shouldn't say limits, but dollar tiers, right? So if it was
Mhm.
under $1,000, I got paid one number. If it was under 2,500, it was a little bit more money. Under 5,000, a little bit more money. Under 10,000, a little bit more money, right? So it was actually
Mhm.
to my benefit as an adjuster for the insurance company. If I had something coming in at about 2,200 bucks, for me to go and find a couple more things to get that
Yeah.
insured, right? To get them over the 2,500, I make a little bit more money. And we took care of that insured. And I think the insurance companies knew, right? Like, hey,
Mhm.
we don't want our insureds to get screwed over here, right? It's just sometimes things get overlooked. And when
Yeah.
things get a little bit bigger, there's just so many different aspects to a claim where the public adjuster would come in and be like, hey, we're asking for this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh man, that's a little bit of a stretch, but I see where you're coming from. you
Hmm.
know? So the other thing, Eric, I'm curious about is one of my jobs when I went out to do this role was to determine coverage itself. Right. So, how often are you guys helping the homeowner, right, with actual coverage? Because part of my role would be like to go out to a property and be like, I don't think this is a covered loss, right? This is wear and tear over a period of time. And I'm going to recommend that you don't actually get covered on this one, right? So, how much are you guys dealing with actual coverage and helping an insured to?
We deal with that quite a bit too, where we'll either get a call from an attorney saying that they got a call from somebody that needs help with a denied claim, and they want us to go out and take a look and just see if there's anything we can validate to that, or is there something else that was overlooked? Like maybe your scenario you're mentioning, it's a maintenance issue, it's wear and tear over time, and it's a pipe that's inside of a wall behind a kitchen sink. So it's leaking, nobody knows it's leaking until all of a sudden you have this outburst of water pouring into your basement through your floor. Insurance company comes out and says, hey, you know what, this pipe's been leaking for a long time. We might comb through the policy and see that there's coverage for this hidden damage within the wall because you could not see it physically. If you could have opened up your kitchen cabinets and you could have seen the pipe that was leaking, you didn't fix it, well, that's an issue. That's just a maintenance issue. But if it's hidden behind some sheetrock, then maybe there's some other language in that policy that the current adjuster just isn't aware of. Because, like you said, there are different tier adjusters too. So we have low level adjusters who just deal with small value claims. We have large loss adjusters. So you get a large loss adjuster, he's going to see through that right away, probably give you coverage. A lower loss adjuster, maybe they're just not aware of that yet because they haven't just run into that scenario yet in their job. But yeah, there's scenarios just like that maintenance issue where they say it's a maintenance issue, and maybe it is, but it was hidden to your view, so therefore it's covered certain due to certain language in the policy.
Um, when it comes to the coverage stuff, right? Is there just because it's covered, right? There could also be like triggers of additional coverage. Just like you said, hey, it might not be covered at all. We could also be fighting, hey, they were covering whatever, I don't know, just the building. We want building plus contents. We want building plus
Yeah.
loss of rent. We want, right? So it's not just are you covered or are you not covered? Like there's different parts to the policy that you could be fighting for coverage for as well.
Yeah. There's things like you mentioned. An additional coverage we run into a lot, especially up here in New England, is code upgrades coverage. So let's say you had that little kitchen fire, and you used to have just regular three-prong outlets all across your backsplash in your kitchen. Well, now that you're going to open up that wall cavity, you need to now bring that electrical up to code. So you have a separate bucket of money, let's call it, within your policy. So if you had $300,000 coverage on your house, you'll have 10% typically to use for code coverage. So that's $30,000 separate bucket of money you can use towards these code upgrades. So now you have to get a GFI outlet put in your kitchen. Now you have a separate bucket of money to pay for the overage. So a scenario would be the regular outlet cost $10 that you had, but now you have to go with this upgraded GFI outlet, and that's $25. So the straight fire damage claim would pay the $10 for that damaged outlet, but your code upgrade bucket of money in your policy would pay the additional $15 for the above and beyond code upgrade. So you do have to separate these things out for the adjusters too. They don't just pay you for the $25 outlet. They have to break it up into the buckets of what you had versus what you're going back with on the code upgrade. So another thing, maybe that maintenance issue we were just talking about, the leaking pipe behind the sheetrock. Well, maybe there's some rot to some wood behind there, but again, you didn't see it, so you might have $10,000 coverage in your policy for hidden rot coverage for that scenario where the rot was behind sheetrock, it was covered, nobody ever would have known it was happening. So in the middle of your construction process for your kitchen, you're finding this rotted wood. Now you have another bucket of money to use for that rotted wood. So it's not coming out of your fire damage claim.
Let's just kind of pause there. Let's see if anybody's got any questions for Eric. Anybody come across some scenarios, or just as we're talking through anything kind of jogging your memory on something that you've seen that would be a good question for Eric, or just a comment in general. KB.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I always think about when I'm working with a client is, insurance. And when we're talking to our buyer clients about insurance, what as an agent can we be recommending our clients to ask their insurance provider when they're searching for insurance, because I know there's, a lot of times clients will look for the cheapest policy, right? Because they're trying to have the cheapest um, payment, but that could be an issue, and it has been an issue. So I was curious to see what you would recommend.
Yeah, a lot of people, they do. They just want the cheapest policy out there. I would say to all of you agents, when you're helping your client find a home and lock that sale in, they're not just getting insurance for the sale price. So you might buy a house for $300,000, but on the insurance side of things, to tear that house down and build it back stick by stick, you might be at 450, 500,000, depending on what code upgrades you're up against, just different zoning codes, different local building department issues. So you don't want to just get insurance for the value of your home. You want to go above and beyond that. Some key things you're definitely going to want to look for is code upgrade coverage. You want to make sure your homeowner's policy has code upgrade coverage. Most policies do come with it. Some policies from out of the area, they do not necessarily come with it. Now it's an added endorsement you have to pay for. So you want to make sure you got that rolled into your homeowner's policy. Is code coverage. Another thing people kind of overlook is their loss of use. So that's going to be a category on your insurance declarations page that's going to pay for your loss of use when you're out of the home. So if you had a bad house fire and you're living in a rental property for 12 months while your house is being rebuilt, you want to make sure you have coverage to pay for that rent for 12 months. So, rent these days is excessive. So you're going to rent furniture in a house, you're going to spend $6,000-7,000 a month on just that. So multiply that times 12 months, and you want to give yourself some extra just for some food, some going out to eat, things like that you're going to do while you're in kind of a temporary hotel situation. So you want to just make sure you have adequate coverage. Just have these conversations with your agent, make sure they are looking into this for you, and you're not just taking the first thing that they're presenting to you because it was the cheapest.
Eric, another one on that front is we've obviously seen a large increase in home values over the past few years, right? So if I bought a
Mhm.
house, beginning a pandemic or pre-pandemic, has my insurance necessarily stayed up to pace with the values?
Yeah, and you definitely want to make sure you're calling your agent on this. There are a lot of great agents out there, and there's a lot of agents who just maybe just don't know any better. So they are just they're renewing your policy every year, but they're not necessarily reaching out to you to ask you, are there any changes? And even if they asked you if there's changes, how would you even know what changes you need if you're not in the business? So you do want to make sure you're having a conversation with your agent once a year. Um, Ask them to reevaluate the values on your deck page, make sure they're adequate for what's going on in the real world around you. But make sure you reach out to them. Don't just rely on them kind of giving you a call. So they're your agent, make sure they're working for you and they're doing the right thing.
Would
I
you
love
say
that.
that?
'Cause
Go ahead.
I love that because I feel like that's a really great touch point for us as real estate agents, right? Like when we're doing our follow up with our sphere or our past clients, being able to reach out to them and say, hey, the values of properties have gone up. Have you guys had a conversation? Would you like a home valuation to know where your property's at? And it might be a good idea to have a conversation with your insurance agent. So easy touch
Mhm,
point, guys.
mhm.
So I know, Eric, there's a lot of different little endorsements, they call them, which are little extra things that you can get coverage for in your policy. Any in particular that stick out to you that, man, I go on a lot of claims and it would have been nice if they had this endorsement or that, which is not part of that base package that you just kind of see quite a bit that, yeah, it's going to be an extra $100 a year, but man, it can really make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I just recently ran into this where we had a client with a bad fire in Springfield, almost $400,000 fire. And while working on this massive, old, beautiful home, we did uncover some rot. These people had Progressive, and they had a great policy, other than the fact that the Progressive policy did not cover rot, which is usually a given. It's usually rolled into your policy in Massachusetts, but they're an out-of-state carrier, so they don't all necessarily include all these things. So that was kind of a shock to everybody later on to find out that um, they didn't have rot coverage. So now who's going to pay for this like $10,000 worth of rot? Now this is going to come out of their fire claim. So now the contractor's maybe got to kind of cut out a couple things he was going to do over here for them, and now he's going to apply that to over here because these people didn't have $10,000 in their pocket just to give to the contractor for the rot. So that's something that's usually like you just expect it. It's a given. It was not in there. But your basic, you just want to make sure your coverages are good for the dollar amounts. Code coverages is a big one. A new endorsement, not one that you necessarily want, but one that we're seeing come out now is called a functional replacement cost policy or endorsement. So that means, let's say you have an old house, you have plaster. Plaster might be $8 a square foot to replace. Obviously, you're going to go back with sheetrock. Sheetrock is half the price. Now, most carriers will pay you the $8 a square foot for the plaster because that's what you had. But now this functional replacement cost will say, well, your plaster wall is the same as your sheetrock wall. So we're not paying you for the plaster you had like most policies do. We're going to pay you for the cheaper sheetrock instead. Which it is fair. They're paying you for what you had, but most policies pay you for the $8 a square foot, which gives you a little wiggle room on your rebuild and other things you might want to get done, where now they're really penny pinching you and they're just giving you the functional wall, whatever functions as a wall. And that's sheetrock, that's cheaper. So now they're allowed to go back with a cheaper material.
So KB
So
had
just little
put,
things that we're starting to see in the industry.
KB put
that
something
change.
in the chat to talk about some storm coverage options. Right, we've got a lot of Florida folks on the call. So anything that comes up when you think storms and hurricanes and
I know a big one in Florida is that when you have a named storm, you have a percentage deductible on most of those. So you might have a 5% deductible rather than just $1,000 or $2,500. So that's a big thing in Florida that we see a lot down there. Now, I haven't been licensed in Florida in probably a decade now. So I do have a couple guys here at the office. They're still active down in Florida. They go back and forth. So a little more up to speed on the Florida, the ever-changing laws down there. But I know the deductibles are big. The name stormed percentage deductibles are huge because that takes a good chunk of money out of people's claim when they're going to rebuild.
Margareta.
Yeah, question. Do you deal much with any like city violations? Or is
I
that
do go to
totally
housing court a
separate?
lot with my clients. Like when they have a fire, they have a car that crashes into the building, they now have a code violation because of the structure. So I will go to housing court downtown with them. But just standalone violations, unless it's claim worthy, I'm not dealing with it. Just because I'm licensed to deal with insurance claims.
Thank
But
you.
if you have a violation and it's in sync with an insurance claim, then there might be something I can do to help out with getting the violations corrected through the insurance claim repair process.
Thank you.
Adam, I think you were going to comment on the deductibles. Did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I can definitely confirm 5% is still normal. So if you put that into numbers terms, average price point around here, let's just call it 500,000. That's a $25,000 deductible. So
That's huge.
you could replace your roof and you're still coming out of your own pocket.
Yep.
So you got to have a serious, and I learned that the hard way because I had 3 properties that just went through a storm. So as you get farther away, like my personal property is a little bit farther away from the water, we're at 2%, so it's a little bit more reasonable. But again, that's still 12 grand, 10 grand, depending on the value of your house. So
It's a lot.
that's it's you're not making money on storms down here unless you get crushed, and then so just
Yep.
want to confirm
And
that's still active practice.
yeah, and like Adam's talking about, not every claim's worth putting in. So we do a lot of that too. We'll go out and see people, maybe they have a $4,000 claim. And I'll ask them, if you got to come out of pocket your $1,000 or $2,500 deductible, and then they're also going to depreciate the value of your claim. So what are you really walking away with now? Are you walking away with $1,000? Was it worth you putting a blemish on your record to file that $4,000 or $5,000 claim?
Yeah, and Eric, let's just talk about that a little bit. And I don't know how in depth we can get on that, but that is a fact. Like when you put in claims in, right? You'd think, well, I've been paying for this. Right? If I happen to have 2 or 3 claims, then I happen to have 2 or 3 claims. But that's not the way it works. Like you definitely start to get a record of claim history.
Yeah. If you put 2 or 3 claims in a year, you're getting dropped. For sure, especially up here, you're going to go right to mass property underwriting insurance, and you're stuck there for a couple years. until your kind of insurance rating gets a little better, and then you can get outside of that pool and go get private insurance again. But yeah, I mean, the more claims you file, the worse off it is for your insurance record, and the higher premiums you're going to pay whenever it's being shopped around.
The other term that you threw out there was depreciation, right? So
Mhm.
can you just explain what that is to everybody? Because I'm sure they don't know it.
Yeah. So the easiest way is probably to talk about contents. Let's say there's a TV you had. TV gets damaged. It was $1,000 TV, but maybe the TV is 4 years old. So there's a depreciation rate on that TV. So let's just say that $1,000 TV gets damaged. Now they're going to give you $700 up front. They'll say, okay, here's your $700, your depreciated value. When you go out and replace that $1,000 TV and give us the receipt showing us you incurred that cost and spent the $1,000, we'll then give you the other $300 to make you whole. So they do that all over the place in Massachusetts. They'll do that on your contents. They do it on the building. You know, if you had a $500,000 fire and they give you 400 up front, you can either do whatever you want with the 400, never hand in a piece of paper, or if you want that other 100,000 to make you whole with the $500,000, you need to show them the contractor's contracts, the checks, all the materials bought, everything. So there's a process to recoup that depreciation on a claim once it's applied.
Adam?
One of the things I always see and I'm always curious about is, you know, the amount of houses that we as realtors or renovators walk into where the homeowner's done, you know, DIY plumbing and DIY electrical.
Mm.
If that's the cause of the fire, right? Because I always laugh. You could roll a cigarette on the ground in your two-family, the thing blows up
Yep.
and you're fully covered, right?
Yep.
So how often do you see like, I guess, can you get in trouble if you DIY electrical or plumbing and that's the cause of the loss?
Yeah, no, I've seen plenty of this, and like insurance pays for stupidity. So they, like you said, like smoking a cigarette, put it down. I've seen people frying fish at 3 in the morning. They fall asleep on the couch while the food's cooking, lights the whole place on fire. I've recently had one where a homeowner did his own electrical work in his electrical panel, and that ended up shorting another wire in a wall, and it burnt the house. Um, you know, people smoking in their house, that happens all the time. So they do pay for things like that. Haven't seen people get in trouble yet. So as long as you are not purposely setting your house on fire and committing arson, you don't get in trouble. So there's a lot of stupid, dumb, accidental things that happen with people all the time. But they will pay for that.
So
As
just
long
to
as it's not
clarify, instead
intentional.
of yeah, and instead of hiring a licensed electrician as required in Massachusetts, you wire
Yeah.
your own stuff. That's
Yeah.
still covered because you didn't intentionally
Yep, you didn't
wow.
intentionally do it. Yep, but now on the flip side, now the city gets involved, and then they say, all right, you have code violations, and now you need to get all this electrical upgraded, brought up to code, and dealt with a licensed electrician. They want to see permits, which you had a fire, so you're going to fix all that stuff anyway.
Right.
So it kind of just two birds, one stone at that point with the repair process. But yeah, no, I haven't seen anybody go to jail yet for doing their own electrical or lighting a place on fire with a cigarette. So
Alex?
Yeah, so I have a client right now who it's like a mother and a daughter living together. They're both older. Mother lives in the separate wing of the house. Every time she showers, everything's fine. Every time they run a bath, it flooded both rooms. So it flooded like the garage and then the room where the mother stayed in. So the question then becomes, is it more beneficial to hire a private adjuster to come out there and just let them know, especially since you had mentioned something about like maintenance, and if this being inside the wall and nobody could tell, if it's as like a deteriorating defect, or is it more beneficial to hire a private appraiser or a private adjuster to come out before putting a blemish onto the insurance, or should they just go straight with the insurance company? And then
I would call
also,
the. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, kind of like also, what is the typical investment price or cost of getting a private adjuster? Because these people are kind of living paycheck to paycheck as well.
So up here in Massachusetts, the fee is 10%. So the max we can charge is 10%. In Florida, I believe it's 20%. You shouldn't ever have to hire anybody at 20% in Florida. Plenty of guys will do it for 15, 12, probably 10 down there because it's so saturated with public adjusters in Florida. On your water claim issue, I would say get a private adjuster out there, let them walk through the scenario with them first. Because you know, like right away, if you're saying this has happened repeatedly over and over and over again, as soon as the insurance company hears that, they're going to deny it because it's repeated seepage, or that is a maintenance issue because you let it continuously happen. So let the adjuster come out. Let's see how far gone it is. Is it rotted through already? Then you know this has been going on for months and years, and not just a 1 or 2 time event. You know, is it just a blocked line, something like that? You know, I'd have to go out and look at photos and things like that. And that's what any other public adjuster would want to do, is get out there, get eyes on it, and see what it looks like so they can properly advise you on what you're looking at. And even if you file the claim, would they cover it at this point? Just
Yeah.
knowing what the damages look like and what the scenario is and how long it's been going on for.
Okay. And when you're
So
saying,
it'd be worth talking to them for free and have them come out, because they shouldn't be charging you just to come out and take a look. You know, all public adjusters work off a percentage. So if you're
okay,
not receiving a check, then they shouldn't be charging.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Margareta?
Okay, I just realized that this is one of my favorite questions I always wanted to ask. Knob and tube. If let's say, you know, there's invisible knob and tube, and now with the insurance the way it is, and there is a fire because of that, what happens?
Not a problem. They insured you the way it was. If you didn't know about it, that's fine. You know, I know some old school electricians around here in Springfield. They would rather deal with knob and tube. They think it's safer than BX or Romex and other stuff that have come out after the fact. So knob and tube, everybody makes a big deal about it, but ultimately there's plenty of houses still operating off knob and tube around here. And insurance companies do insure them. Some of them get a little funny about it. So you do want to be truthful on your application in, because I've seen that before, where they just don't know about the knob and tube. And if the home inspector didn't tell them about it, how are they supposed to know as a homeowner that they had knob and tube? You know, I've certainly seen claims be denied because they didn't let people know they had dogs on property, or they told people they lived at a rental property that they really don't live at, and it's a rental, not a homeowner's policy. I've seen claims denied because of that. But they shouldn't deny you just because you had knob and tube and then you had a fire.
All right.
Thank you.
We've pushed over the limit a little bit here, Eric, but a ton of
All right.
knowledge. You know, I feel like we're going to have you on for a follow-up call for sure. Maybe you could just put a little something in the chat right now if anybody wanted to reach out to you. Maybe they're thinking about a scenario, or just to have your contact information. Deanna's just putting in here that Eric has helped out with her grandmother with a fire claim. That was an insane claim. So I know you've helped out a lot of our agents. I know you do an amazing job, and I really appreciate you coming on this morning and just kind of laying a foundation here, educating the agents. We'll definitely have you back. While you're putting that in there,
thank you very much.
let me just get a quick share up on the screen. We'll take a look at the training that is available. A couple of different trainings available today: Social Media and Marketing Mastermind and CEO Connect. So take those trainings, learn a little something, come back and share with the group. So hopefully you guys are off to a good start this week, and we will do this again tomorrow. All right. Appreciate you guys. Take care. Have a great Monday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Have a good day.
You too.